Jonathan Taves. Welcome back inside XL Energy Center. Dave Strader along with Dale Ray and Brian Englund. Glad you're with us here for this all-important Western Conference matchup. As we take a look at the goaltending matchup, it'll be Corey Crawford. He, like his teammates, played last night. He was terrific in a shootout victory over the Phoenix Coyotes. And down at the other end, although he didn't play in the last game, that was Jose Theodore that was in goal in Anaheim. It will be Nicholas Backstrom tonight. And this game brought to you in high definition by Geico. Jonathan Taves and John Madden, of course, were teammates on that Stanley Cup team a year ago. Jonathan Taves told Brian Englund in our pregame show, not going to be able to outwork John Madden. Maybe I can outsmart him. That's not easy to do either against the wily veteran, number 11 for the Wild. As this shot by Clayton Stoner, number 4 for the Wild, didn't get through. Behind the net, Leddy was checked there by Madden as the Wild tried to get in quickly on the forecheck here. On the angle, that puck bounces in front of Crawford. Nystrom couldn't control. Here is Madden. Leddy steps into him again. Now Jonathan Taves picks it up. And Taves, who had a pair of goals in that victory over Phoenix last night, both in the first period. He leads the National Hockey League in first period points. And second best in that department is Patrick Krebs. So the Wild want to pay attention to this line, Razor.
And they are. I think if Todd Richards, the coach of the Wild, can get that matchup, that's the one he wants tonight.
Burnett hands it off. Now Cullen with a wrist shot and Crawford with a save. And he will hang on and give us a chance to take a look at our Craftsman tools for success.
For Minnesota, dictate the pace. You heard Burnett just talk about that. Make the Hawks chase the score if they can here tonight. For Chicago, a full 60 minutes of intensity and make their power play count if they get on it. And then obviously at this time of year, everyone's talking like these regular season games or playoff games. Goaltending is paramount.
Well, the face-off to the right of Crawford down with the Chicago zone, controlled by the Wild. Here's Brent Burns, got a shot through it, thumped off the right pad of Crawford.
Wow, 3 guys right to the net after that face-off win.
Now Hjalmarsson, who was questionable last night. He came out for the warm-up against the Coyotes. 3 different times during the warm-up, he left the bench. But he decided he was good to go. And then the Hawks ended up losing defenseman Jordan Hendry in that game. Lower body injury. He's out long-term. The acquisition, of course, today of Chris Campoli. Pretty good offensive-minded defenseman from the Ottawa Senators, although he is not here tonight, Razor. They hope to have Campoli for their all-important game against Calgary on Wednesday.
Right, they were already searching for a little depth on defense.
If Minnesota's smart, they'll pound that Chicago defense right from the very beginning and keep it going all night long.
Right, the more they play in their own zone, the worse off they are after competing in overtime last night at home.
Pro-league shot into the glove of Nicholas Backstrom, and Joel Quenneville, who came off a little bit of a time away from the team because of a bleeding ulcer. In fact, he missed 4 games. The team was 3-1 in his absence, but he says he's in good health. He's ready to go. And he was fired up behind the bench last night when a goal was taken away because of a whistle.
Well, he's a fiery competitor, and in this playoff race they're in right now, you need that from everybody involved. And his top demand is always pace, pace, pace. Do everything at a quick pace. Play fast, shoot fast. Tough to do when you're playing on these back-to-back nights. It's as much about smarts as it is pace.
Third line out here right now for Joel Quenneville. Centering attempt there for Frolik. Michael Frolik, of course, acquired before the trade deadline in a deal that sent Jack Skilly to the Florida Panthers. Frolik has played well, but still looking for his first point as the Hawks are called here for a hand pass. And there was the head coach of the Minnesota Wild, his second year behind the bench, Todd Richards,
who really likes his team right now. Talked this morning about 2 things, buzzwords that just keep coming up for their side: trust and belief. It's taken a while to get that. Certainly got the trust first, and now they have belief that they're a playoff team.
Yeah, Razor, it's a great atmosphere around here in Minnesota. A lot of people looked at the trade deadline and went, huh? Why didn't they do something? But they really do feel good about this team. And as far as they're concerned, Koivu's back in 2 weeks, and they're hoping Laton Dress will come back in a little while. They miss him so much. He had a tremendous year for them last year. That'll be their trade deadline deals.
Top center and a big power forward. Yeah, I mean, that's their internal additions.
And they already live here.
That's right. Transportation costs will be so limited to get them here, as this play is just offside. Kovasu does not agree with the call of the linesman Thor Nelson, but as a player, you're very rarely going to win those arguments with the linesman.
Plant seeds, though.
Yep.
Kobasu is on their fourth line here now, and his name was bandied about a little bit as far as rumors heading into the trade deadline. Got tremendous speed, but the finish on the end of all that speed doesn't seem to marry up as often as maybe they would like or he would like, obviously.
Kopetsky and Staubitz jabbing each other pretty good for this faceoff. Interesting, Andrew Burnett telling Brian Engblom that the first period sometimes advantage for the team that played the night before because they're more game ready to go.
Yeah, I believe that too, Dave. I always felt that way as a player. You're still kind of oiled up from the night before.
Yeah.
It's the third period you feel it.
Yeah, exactly.
Third period, or if you're down by a couple.
Yeah, exactly.
Makes you feel bad.
Always takes more energy to chase the game, as coaches like to say so often in the National Hockey League today. Schultz dumped this puck back where Crawford got a piece of it. Now Duncan Keith brings it out from behind his own net. Played better than 30 minutes last night. He's used to that, but still back-to-back could be an issue. Deflected in wide of Baxter. Now Clutterbuck, one of the top hitters in the National Hockey League, played that up high on the glass. And Duncan Keith will get there just ahead of Nystrom. And Keith from behind his own goal. Up the middle now for Jonathan Taves. Hands it off for Patrick Kane. Kane puts on the break. It goes down to Sharp. Sharp with a shot right through traffic. Save made. Loose puck is recovered now by Zanin. And Zanin plays it ahead off the stick of Madden. And John Scott back to get it.
Boy, good work by Stoner in front of the net to make sure that he executed on Taves. Rebound was right there. That line's going to be murdered tonight.
If Stoner and Zanin playing together are painful on defense, and that Madden line is extremely painful to play against. That's what they want against Taves as much as possible tonight.
Now Burnett up the right wing side. Darts to the middle. Wanted to hand it off on the near side for Zidlitsky. And that great one-timer that he possesses. But the Hawks spoiled that. Back the other way now comes Frolik. Sends it far side. Yetnin had Campbell well covered. Now Brouwer, who has 4 points, including 3 goals in this season series. He likes playing the Wild. Shot here right through. Save made. Rebound. Frolik. And that hit the side of the net.
Boy, Spurgeon and Zidlitsky both ended up in the same corner and vacated the front of the net there.
And Frolik had an excellent chance there. He tried to settle the puck down. It was rolling a little bit, but there's no excuse to miss the net. That hit the side of the net.
That whole thing, Brian, started way down at the other end. You can see the Hawks collapse into the middle of the ice in their own zone. They trapped the Wild forwards, took it the other direction, and then continued on in and around Backstrom.
Kyle Bronziak centering this line, missed the last couple with a nil-nil. Now here's Havlin with a shot. Crawford able to make the save. Let's go down to Brian Engblom inside the glass, brought to you by BlackBerry.
Well, Nicholas Backstrom made a terrific play on that last chance for the Chicago Blackhawks. They rely on him an awful lot to make big saves, but it was Michael Frolik who had a great scoring chance in the slot area. The puck comes out. It was bouncing a little bit. Spurgeon did end up getting a stick on it somewhat, but Minnesota has to be careful on those quick bang-bang plays there.
Look out here. Is that shot from a severe angle? Yeah. Crawford stopped it, but he wasn't sure where the rebound was.
How many times do you see those broken plays, though, Brian, like that in front of the net that end up being the more lethal type? The puck gets all the way through. Everybody continues on with their own responsibilities. But if it hits something, all of a sudden, anarchy.
Yeah, exactly. You have to be aware all the time where the opposing players are and know that a rebound could go anywhere. You can't just come back and take up space in front of your net and hope that you're in the right place. Your job is to find where the other guys are and tie the sticks up.
Of course, Brian, you were a defenseman when you played Razor. You were a goaltender. In those situations, how much communication can you have and how important is that?
It's as much about reaction as anything else, I think. It's just you can't talk that fast.
Exactly. There's no way.
Oh, you guys can talk that.
No, forget it. You got to figure it out.
All right, here's Kobasu now, taking it along the boards. Behind Crawford, tried to wheel and fire it on net. It was blocked wide. Stoner came in from the left point. And there is John Scott. Won't expect him to play a lot, but the minutes he can provide for the Blackhawks will be important. He's only played a couple of games on defense.
Right.
They got to go at him. They got to work him hard there and see if he's used to skating backwards, making the turns, making the reads, which he hasn't done much lately.
And the banging's starting to pick up a little bit here. Well, you got to think that if Joel Quenneville can get him on the ice a little bit early, keep the legs in his top guys.
It's like having a new defensive back in a football game. Where does the quarterback go? He tests them out right away.
Now Nystrom along the near boards for the Wild. Trying to come out with it, but it was taken away by Ryan Johnson, who had a strong night in the faceoff circle last night where he normally is strong. You're watching Capital One Hockey Night on Versus here from St. Paul. Scoreless here in St. Paul, Minnesota. Time for tonight's Pizza Hut favorite matchup, and it's a matchup of guys that used to be teammates. Captain Jonathan Toews of the Hawks, John Madden of the Wild.
Intimate knowledge of each other's habits and strengths. Might come down to just skating and will, and who dictates on these face-offs. You win it, you don't have to chase as much.
Well, the thing about having a defensive line, which Madden's is against the offensive line, and Toews is a big advantage for Chicago if the defensive line for Minnesota is out all the time. The difference, though, is that Clutterbuck has become a much better scorer this year than he has in the past. That helps Minnesota use them more maybe than they otherwise would.
And they expect them to counterpunch if they can.
That shot from the point by Duncan Keith, handled by Backstrom. Angled up the near side by Madden, off the stick out the center right. Letty was just crunched by Clutterbuck. Here comes Madden the other way, goes by, backhand shot off with the save. Madden behind the net, trying to get it out in front. Duncan Keith recovers and able to hand it off for Nick Letty. Sharp pass to center ice, and that is deflected by Kane as both teams look to make changes.
You can already see that line would like to make sure that it's a painful night for the Hawks top trio that have been phenomenal lately. Finish your checks.
Hawks come in, they have won their last 4. Minnesota Wild are 3-1-1 in their last 5. Both teams with identical records. Along with the Dallas Stars, those 3 teams are 7, 8, and 9 in the Western Conference. And again, the new tie-breaking rule this year, it's not wins, it's wins in regulation and overtime. You subtract the shootout wins, and that's why Minnesota right now has the advantage over both of those teams as Pro Luke drives this one wide of Crawford. Both Dallas and Chicago not only have identical records, but have the identical number of wins after you subtract the shootouts. Yeah. And so Minnesota actually has the fourth best number, I should say, of wins in regulation and overtime this season. So those other 2 teams right now realize that they have to make up a little bit more ground. You got to finish clearly ahead of the Minnesota Wild if you want to be ahead of them at the end of the season.
Well, that was 4 guys going off for Minnesota at the same line change. That is not a good idea against Chicago.
Bolin hands it off now for Marian Hossa, number 81. Hossa takes a look. Hossa has scored a goal in 3 consecutive games. He is starting to warm up. Now Bickle able to get it to Hossa with a shot. Didn't get through. Now Bickle battling against 3 different Wild defenders. Now to Duncan Keith with a shot deflected up over top of the net. Taken by Bolin. Recovered though by Virgin of the Wild. It doesn't come out. Bickle has it now. He takes a look on the angle in the glove of Backstrom, who took a little bit of contact there from Dave Bolin.
One of the most physical players on the ice tonight is Cal Clutterbuck. He's the most physical guy in the entire National Hockey League, so don't admire your pass. Youngster or old guy, and I'm sure they're going to test young Letty in this one and the rest of their defense corps. Hurry them up a little bit with their puck movement.
There's a little stuff going on here already. After that whistle, Bolin skated by and stuck the knee out a little bit on Backstrom. Backstrom wasn't happy, and the referee gave a little warning to Bolin.
Now Kane sent it toward the net. Backstrom has it. That replay that we just saw, Brian, Nick Letty, one thing I noticed was how he prepared himself for the hit. We don't see that maybe often enough from guys when they're that close to the boards. And that's how some of these horrific injuries happen.
Yeah, if you can get close to the boards and snug up to them right away, yeah, it hurts, but at least you don't get hit twice. If you're a foot or 2 away, you get hit once by the guy and the second time by the boards, and neither one of them's any good.
And an awareness of who you're playing against, right, Brian?
Oh, yeah. You got to know when Clutterbuck and Nystrom and those guys, those 2 in particular, and that's what Todd Richards wants.
Speaking of Nystrom, hands it off now for Stoner, who dumps it back in deep. Madden behind the Chicago goal, but it's taken away by Toews. And Todd Richards getting this matchup that he wants here in the first period. Of course, as the home coach, he's going to have that advantage as Backstrom plays it back along the glass. Held in by Letty, and now here is Sharp for Kane. Kane looks over his shoulder, now drops it back for Toews. Toews only had 1 goal in 12 home games up until last night. Boy, he got comfortable on home ice with a couple of first period goals against Phoenix. Puck deflected in wide of the Minnesota goal. Stoner angles it off the glass. Bouncing puck picked up by Clutterbuck. And now Duncan Keith has it.
Well, pretty good defensive play by young Letty there, one-on-one down the boards.
Now Keith slides it across. Letty gets the center ice line, dumps it back behind Backstrom, who takes a look. Moves it now to Schultz, tried to play it up the board. Kopetsky blocked it. Trying to get that forecheck going.
You see him just coming in and pinching off the boards, daring the Wild to bring it out in the middle of the ice.
Now Scott out here again for the Hawks on defense, playing next to Brian Campbell. Spot that Jordan Hendry was occupying recent weeks for the Blackhawks as Crawford comes out to play this puck around the boards. Stahlberg hands it off for Koketsky across the line. Quick wrist shot. Bounces off of Backstrom. He pushes it to the near boards. Now Johnson with a centering attempt. And Cullen was there, and the Wild safely cleared out to center ice.
Good subtle support by Cullen, who's been excellent with the injuries the Wild have sustained in the middle of the ice. Koivu out, be out a couple more weeks. Their top center iceman, Brodziak, missed a couple of games.
Corey Crawford without his goal stick. One of the Wild players went by him and kind of accidentally knocked it out of his hand, and he kind of looked at the referee and shrugged it. Fortunately, it was not an issue for him as the Wild could never get it back into the Chicago zone. Now Hjalmarsson pushes it along. Seabrook, a day after signing a 5-year, $29 million contract extension, as Brouwer's shot is blocked in front of Backstrom to the near side. Brunette slides it across Miettinen. Now for Schultz joining the play. Backhands it in on Crawford. He covers it there. 8:12 to go in the first. No score here in St. Paul.
Welcome back to St. Paul. Todd, you guys are statistically very good in the first period. Chicago's even better. How do you like your first period so far?
Well, there's a little bit of flow. I think both teams are feeling each other out right here. You don't want to make a mistake, because mistakes at this stage of the game can be costly.
How much can you afford to put the Madden line out against the Taves line and keep your top scorers off the ice?
Well, I'll have to mix and match a little bit, but I'm going to try to get them out there as much as possible. Maybe the odd offensive zone face-off, give our more offensive players an opportunity there.
Thanks, Todd.
Thanks, Brian.
All right, and as you saw, Jonathan Taves is on the bench, and so is the Madden line. Here is Havlat now for the Wild. Looking to feed it out to the point. It's taken by Brent Burns with a wrist shot. All the way through, yes, saved. Up in the air, was knocked out of there by one of the Chicago defensemen. I think it was Duncan Keith that may have saved a goal with his glove as it's flipped back the other way. Holzer with his speed is going to catch up for a backhander, but he ran out of real estate and didn't have an angle, but it comes right back to number 81. Drops it to the line. Hjalmarsson with a shot here. Saved by Backstrom, and he holds it.
Wow, transition from the Hawks. Great keep-in after the face-off. Brodziak kept it in for the Wild and then goes to the net. Almost whacked that thing in. A peek from our Jack Daniels goal camp. Crawford out to cut off the angle. In comes Duncan Keith, and you're right. That may have rainbowed right over top of the Hawk netminder and in.
Little handball practice for Duncan Keith. Now Kane pushes it along the board. Taves battling there. Now Nystrom trying to clear the zone. It didn't come out. Stoner's going to have to go back and get it. Moves it to his partner's hand and far side for Clutterbuck. Now for Madden in the middle of the ice. So the Madden line out here against the Taves line, and this play is offside.
Good execution coming out of their own zone, too, against that unit. Nystrom's been a nice addition here. He had hoped to add more pop offensively, but he's been very accountable, and the effort has been there night after night.
And how about Patrick Kane? Of all the talent out there, the most dazzling set of hands belongs to him, there's no doubt. He reminds me a lot of Alexei Kovalev when Kovalev first came into the league. Maybe mix in a little bit of Pavel Datsyuk. He's got 6 multi-point games in the last 12, guys.
And he's got that swagger to go with him.
Yes.
It's just something about that kid. He loves playing. He loves life. He loves being a Blackhawk. And as Frolik dumps this in wide of Backstrom. Dowell checked by Spurgeon. And Brouwer takes down Cullen. But the centering pass intercepted by Miettinen now, who had it slapped away.
Good coverage by Wild forwards there. Frolik was right in front of the net. They get it past the defenseman in front of those collapsing forwards. Their defense, you talk about how better the Wild are this season in their defensive game. The goaltending's been part of that, and so have the forwards coming back and helping out.
Now Campbell gets it back, hands it off to Bolin. Dangerous slow pass there. Kovacic was able to slap it away from Hossa, recovered by Seabrook.
Good thing that wasn't Clutterbuck coming through the middle.
Now Hossa being slapped at there by Schultz. Now Warren Peters, number 43, comes over. He's back up from Houston of the American Hockey League, wearing number 43. Played in their last game Friday night against Anaheim. Provided some energy and physicality in that game. Had a little cup of coffee earlier in his career with Calgary and with the Dallas Stars. Now Burns across the line, hands it off. Stamets with a shot that's deflected up high on the glass. Campbell, number 51, has it. Gunner now in Bickle. Drops it back. Here comes Kane with some speed through the neutral zone. Pulls it away from Brodziak. Now Kane looks across. He has a man open. Duncan Keith with a drive. Left pad saved by Backstrom.
Boy, the Wild are going to have to watch the play away from the puck in neutral ice. That's where the Hawks can murder you with your transition game, especially defensemen to forwards.
Now Sharp hands it off on the near side. Duncan Keith chips it ahead. Patrick Kane able to send it along the boards in behind Backstrom. Kane watched by Stoner. Leaves it in the corner for Taves. Nice little short pass off the wall for Sharp. Tries to get it out to Keith. It was tipped, and here Marc Bouchard. Haven't said his name much tonight. Trying to get something going here, but good recovery by Leddy. And now Patrick Sharp hands it off, and Leddy has it again.
Sorry, Brian, first shift of this opening period that I think we haven't seen the Madden line out there against Taves and company.
Yeah, well, I think that Todd Richards wants to mix in the talent. He talked about that in the interview a little bit. It's hard to get it right. He can't have Madden's line out there too much, as we talked about, because that means Havlat and Bouchard, guys like that, are sitting too long on the bench. That plays into Chicago's hands.
So far, we have not had a penalty, so it's been an even strength game. And if Kane and Taves and company are going to play 18, 20 minutes, you want Madden's line playing 20 minutes and therefore keeping the likes of Brunette and Havlat on the bench too long. Big hit by Clutterbuck.
What a great hit by Spurgeon along the wall here on the short side. He's the smallest guy on the ice. Great hip check.
This puck is hoisted out of there by Shedlitsky, and it's going to just barely, it's not going to cross the line quickly enough. They negated the icing before Jean-Musson went back to finally touch it.
Good backspin.
Now here's Spaulding with a drive, and the stick of Schultz got in the way. You're watching Capital One Hockey Night on Versus here in St. Paul.
As Duncan Keith is one of the better transition defensemen in the league. Good example of what he can do when you're not that smart going the other way. Watch the Wild as they all head off on a change, despite the fact the puck wasn't deep. He turns it up, boom, hits his partner up the side. If they have another guy in transition, away they go. Campbell can fly. They're all hustling to try to get back into the zone after that. Do that with the wrong guys on the ice and a lot of energy, and you'll be down by a goal.
There were so many guys going off the ice there, I didn't think anybody wanted to play for a minute.
Under 4 minutes remaining here in the first. The shots are 10-8 Hawks. We are scoreless between these two teams that come into this contest with identical records. Taves jumps around his man. Now Zanin trying to tie him up along the boards. Kane is right there in the vicinity as he usually is. Finds Sharp. Sharp with a low wrist shot into the glove of Nicholas Backstrom. And as you might expect, there's been some physical play tonight.
There have been some punishing hits in the game. It's been a lot of flow in the game, too. You know, a lot of skating, a lot of continuous action. But when you get a chance, lay a lick on the opposition. Soften them up, hurry them up. I think that team physicality has been in place throughout this one.
Draw controlled by the Hawks. They've controlled the last two after the Wild had the best of it in the faceoff circle in the early going. Another big hit delivered there by Nystrom, that time on Campbell. Taves, though, reached in and got a piece of the puck. Taves trying to make a play along the boards while he's occupied by Stoner. Now Kane to Sharp, made a nice play to fake the one-timer. Hands it off. Duncan Keith. Now to Kane. Spins, knocked down, and comes out to Campbell. A drive. Save made by Backstrom, and it's chopped out of there by Madden. Boy, a lot happening in tight quarters when these two lines are against each other.
You know, the play along the board so far, I would give to the Chicago Blackhawks, especially in the Minnesota zone. They turn pucks over a lot. Minnesota needs to be more efficient getting the puck out and making sure it goes out over the blue line, especially against that big line. You don't get second chances against those guys a lot.
Campbell, who played over 26 minutes last night.
What do you think, Brian? The glass a little more, or utilize the middle of the ice a bit more?
Whatever it takes. If it goes around the wall, it's got to be harder and more efficient. Up the middle, you know, Razor, the rule is you always got to be 100% because the turnover there is deadly.
3-on-3 back into the Minnesota zone. Bolin drops it back. Campbell right back to Bolin, and he shoveled it toward the net. Backstrom was square to the shot.
Well, the Hawks are really using the width of the rink well, though.
And they are, and there's another turnover again. Just
Right.
not making sure by Bouchard he doesn't get out. It's picked out of the air by Bolin, and they're still in zone.
Here comes Hossa with a quick forehand to backhand. He does that as well as anyone. Didn't get much on the shot, but Backstrom still had to turn it aside.
He's been good in this opening period, though. He can be a moose, and he's acting that way.
Now both teams making changes as Seabrook doubles it on the far side. Jake Dowell has it there. Under 2 minutes remaining here in the first period. XL Energy Center. Throw leak for Brouwer off the heel of his stick. Brunette takes a quick look over his shoulder. Brouwer stays right on him, hammers him into the end board. Nice little outlet pass, though, Zidlitsky to Cullen. That backside pressure by the Chicago Blackhawks. Nowhere for the Wild to go. The late offside, they waved it off now as the Wild did tag up, but Seabrook is going to move it ahead. Deflected by Brouwer behind Backstrom on the far side. Zidlitsky able to shovel it back down to Stoner. Minute 15 remaining here in the first period. Zidlitsky ahead off of Dowell's stick. Frolik makes a little move to keep control for the Hawks.
They just keep turning it over. It feeds right into Chicago's game. The Wild really haven't had that much attack zone time here as the period has moved along.
Final minute of play in the first period.
Penske chips it off the wall. Stoner angles it off the end boards. It's intercepted by Stallberg, who was effective last night in the win over the Coyotes. But the Wild back the other way. Nystrom tried to get it deep. It's blocked by Duncan Keith. Able to avoid Clutterbuck. Out to center ice now, Stallberg.
Man, it's all they can do, though, to get through that neutral ice area.
There was Clutterbuck. Stallberg turned, and there was nowhere to go. He saw number 22 coming at him. Here's Clutterbuck trying to line up another hit, but Duncan Keith saw it coming.
Sometimes he has to tap the brakes on that a bit, though. He can pull himself way out of position at times, trying to finish hits that seem iffy.
When you look at guys like him and Dustin Brown in Los Angeles, terrific hitting forwards. Back the other way, Kane puts on the brakes. He waits, looks for the late man, Seabrook. Well, the shot that's blocked well up on the netting and out of play. Sharp and Burns exchanging a few jabs.
Good pace to this opening period. You know, I think for the most part, the Hawks are going to be thrilled with how they came out, and they've done exactly what you guys were talking about. Brian was talking about earlier. The night after you play, it's like period 4.
.2 seconds remaining here in the period. Face-off left of Backstrom. It's taken by Kane. Backhands it deep. Brosiak there for the Wild. He was hit hard by Patrick Sharp. Stoner now. And the horn sounds to end the first period of play. A pretty good energy, Razor, from the Blackhawks who played last night.
Very good energy from them, and their forechecking was giving the Wild fits as the period moved along. Really didn't give up all that much as far as scoring chances at the other end. I think they're thrilled with that opening 20 minutes.
Ahead on the Pizza Hut intermission report, it turned out to be a busy day after all of the trade deadline with a flurry of last-minute deals. How will the race for 8th in the Eastern Conference shake out? Bill Keith and Eddie will break down the deadline deals and their impact on the playoff race between periods. Let's go down to Brian Engblom, who has John Madden.
John, you've played with Jonathan Toews. You played against him. What's the secret to playing well against him and his line?
Well, you better have your lunch packed and your work boots on. He's definitely a skilled hockey player, but more than that, he's a hard worker. Probably, he goes along the lines of Sidney Crosby. He's got skill, but he's going to work, all night long.
How did you like your team's first period?
Thought we were a little slow. I thought we could have been a little cleaner with some exits. They were shagging a lot of pucks just inside our blue line, right there, blue line. Looked like we didn't have our legs, but, we got a 0-0 period here and moving forward.
Thanks very much, John.
No problem.
Dave.
All right, Brian, coming up, the Pizza Hut intermission report, the race for 8th in the Eastern Conference. Bill Patrick, Keith Jones, and Eddie Olczyk will have it all covered. Everything that happened around the National Hockey League on this trade deadline day of the 2010-11 season. We're scoreless here after 1 in St. Paul. As we get ready for the drop of the puck here in the second period, tonight's game in high definition is brought to you by Geico. And what do you know? Toews against Madden for the face-off to start the second period. Why not?
Prime matchup. Both sides. That defense pair as well for Todd Richards Wild. Stoner and Zanin.
Hayes wins the draw to start this second period. Again, we have not had a minor penalty, or major for that fact. No penalties called yet in this game, so I'm sure that first power play could be critical when and if it happens. Bill Patrick just mentioned two of the hottest goaltenders in the National Hockey League. Just incredible numbers for both of them in the month of February.
Two pretty good power plays, too, if the game ever gets there.
Hawks currently ranked first in the National Hockey League. The Wild are seventh.
You know, talking about that matchup, guys, that we did in the first period, John Madden had 1.5 minutes to 1.40 minutes more ice time than Havlat Bouchard.
Centering pass and Sharp scores. So that time, the Hawks win the matchup. As Sharp makes it 1-0 less than a minute into this second period.
They come out, get the puck deep, work over the Wild there. Nystrom on the left-hand side of the screen is standing for a second and responsible for a point. At the same time, no collapse. You can see the confusion in behind or in front of goaltender Backstrom, and from our Jack Daniels goal cam, sweet feed in front. Difficult for everybody defending, including the netminder, to get your eyeballs out and track a guy like that.
John Madden's usually more observant than that. He came back to the front of the net, never looked around. We see so many goals scored in the National Hockey League from not directly in front of the net, not in the slot area, but off to the sides in the face-off circle. You got to look around and find those guys, and Minnesota didn't.
We just saw 33rd of the season for Sharp, which ties him for second in the National Hockey League. As Bickle fires it wide with Ryan Kessler, the Vancouver Canucks. So only Stamkos with 41 goals more than Kessler or Sharp. As Cullen weaves his way in and then was taken hard to the boards by Bolin.
That's tracking. Dave Bolin all the way back through. The most dangerous guy in his eyes is Cullen, the puck carrier, and he erased him from the equation.
Yeah, the tracks go right up the back of Cullen.
Yes.
Taves and Keith with the assist, so Taves runs his point streak now to 6 games. Icing the call here. We talked about leadership and how much it needed at this time of the season, especially when you're the defending Stanley Cup champions, and Taves setting up Patrick Sharp, who's, no surprise, one of the leaders in the National Hockey League in terms of shots on goal. He gets pucks to the net.
Yeah, he shoots a lot. He's like a volume shooter, and he scores every type of goal conceivable. Yeah, dangerous, short-handed, power play, everything, Brian.
Yeah, his name matches his shot and his attitude and that sharp tongue, too. Boy, last year in the playoffs, some of those rounds, you could see him yipping at opposing players all the time. It was awesome.
They had a very vibrant bench, didn't they?
Oh, did they ever. And I think that's one thing they had to change this year. They don't have quite the swagger that they had last year, and I think it took them the first 2 months of the season to figure that out. They're a little more low-key this year, even though those 4 guys are still there, but they lost a lot, so it's part of the adjustment they had to make.
Lost 10 guys. Unavoidable comparisons. You end up with that lack of trust.
And this is what the Chicago Blackhawks face. 19 games remaining after tonight, 11 on the road, 7 at home, 9 versus the East. That's incredible.
That's strange.
And only 4 more games against teams that are currently 3 through 8. So that means Joel Quenneville's club that's chasing right now, not playing the teams immediately in front of him. And when you look at San Jose, just 1 more game. 1 game left with the Coyotes, 1 with Dallas, and 1 with Calgary. They're done with LA, they're done with Nashville, and only 1 game against the 3 teams immediately below them, Anaheim, Columbus, and St. Louis. So they are going to be the ultimate scoreboard watching team.
Yeah, that makes it a little more dangerous in my mind. I don't know about you, Ray, so what do you think?
Oh, yeah, we're going to have to sit and play against Eastern Conference teams and watch Western Conference clubs they're competing with split 3 points on a lot of nights. You want your enemy close, right?
Yes, exactly.
Now Kopecky across the line with Stallberg. A 2-on-1 develops. The pass is blocked though by Spurgeon, who did a nice job to prevent a scoring chance from even happening for the Blackhawks. Now John Scott will hands it off. A drive here deflected just wide by Stallberg, who was positioned right in front of Backstrom.
And no coverage there. It's been a forgettable shift for Zedlichky, who's trying to get this thing out and ultimately off, I think.
Some of the sharpest plays on defense by Minnesota have been by Spurgeon, and another good one by him.
He's a smart one.
He is. And you know what? Beginning of the year, they didn't have him anywhere on their radar to play this year.
Now Clutterbuck with a steal. Sends it ahead now as Nystrom trying to get away from Leddy. Crawford comes out to play the puck on the near side. Duncan Keith took a hit from Nystrom. Now Leddy passes it along. Clutterbuck let it go there as it was held in at the line by Schultz. Now picked up on the near side by Duncan Keith. Taves able to chip that puck out through center ice. Clutterbuck back to get it. Taken by Madden, stripped away by Taves.
What did he say between periods? You got to have your lunch pail. Better have your work boots on when you're going straight up against Jonathan Taves.
Taves is so smart, and yeah, he puts the work in, no doubt.
Now slapped away, but recovered by Schultz. Got it across the line. Here's Madden trying to make something happen with it, but it's recovered by Leddy. Taves sends it across now for the player with the only goal in the game. That is Sharp. Now here is Campbell with a little spinorama move. Campbell carries out, hands it off now for Kane. Back to the line, Campbell. Far side now for Seabrook. Between the circles, Patrick Kane with a shot, missed everything.
Threw some coverage though. Two guys out, skate sideways to defend that, both D-men.
Kane can go for 5 or 6 or 8 minutes without touching the puck, and then he'll dazzle you and mesmerize you for 2 or 3 shifts in a row from the back of the net.
Frolik back to the line. Seabrook changes the angle, gets a shot away, save. Rebound tip for Frolik. Michael Frolik, I mentioned, looking for his first point as a Chicago Blackhawk. He's not had a goal in his last 31 games, including his last 23 as a Florida Panther. He's far too talented to go that long.
I think he's a terrific X factor for the Chicago Blackhawks. Frolik's got speed. He's got skill. If he can get himself settled in here with this new team, 21 goals, 2 consecutive years for Florida, and he hasn't come anywhere near that. But playing on a good team with skill here, boy, he could really make a difference.
Taken away, turnover by the Hawks, unable to take advantage. That was Kovacic, and then he got away with a chop on Bolin.
Well, Bolin just cleaned up his own mess that time. Gave the puck away just inside his own blue line. 2 times the Wild had opportunities and couldn't execute with the Chicago Blackhawks out of position. One time changing and couldn't turn it into anything.
Now it's deflected over the line. Picked up by Bolin. He's checked on the play by Zanin. It's sent back the other way, and this was going to be icing, but they waved it off. Leddy spinning away from Bouchard. Now Hossa along the near boards. Got it ahead to Stallberg. Great job by Ryan Johnson.
Was it ever?
Don't know whether he pulled the groin, but he stayed on side. Here is Johnson with it. Hands it off. Campbell with a shot. Traffic in front. Score! Kopetsky! Nick Backstrom could never find this rebound, and Kopetsky makes it 2-0.
Well, he was sloppy with a rebound just prior to this, maybe 2 shifts ago, and they really needed this to stop. I mean, the music to stop completely. Just devour this puck. Good shift by Johnson, though, to dig that puck out of the corner after staying onside, and then Kopetsky late to the party. That just shouldn't get away from him. He'll be mad at himself on that one. Right into the breadbasket and couldn't hang on.
You know what, Razor? Minnesota is just not sharp. They're no better in this second period than they were in the first. They're in a defensive mindset, which certainly wouldn't surprise anybody, but they're not even sharp defensively. I mean, you better be good at it if you're going to sit back and try to play a counter kind of game. But down at this level, I just don't get the feeling that Minnesota is really with it here. They're trying to react to everything Chicago's doing, and Chicago's doing it to them.
I think it's a great point. Like those 2 times when it looked like they had a chance to break, neither time I don't think they were looking for that.
Here is Sharp with another chance, and he just missed over the glove of Backstrom to make it 3-0.
They need this TV timeout, the Wild do right now, to slow this thing down because the Hawks are better.
And then slides it across. Owner able to lift it in wide of Crawford. 12th of the season for Kopetsky. Now Taves makes a move, dances around Sand and drops it back, but it's Madden there to intercept. Now Sharp hands it off. Seabrook with a shot. Went just wide, and it's covered up by Backstrom. Well, the first goal of the game, scored by the leading goal scorer, Patrick Sharp. It was a thing of beauty. We'll have more on him when we come back. Well, welcome back here to Capital One Hockey Night on Versus. And how far has this Chicago Blackhawk franchise come? Remember, coming out of the lockout, they were struggling with attendance. They weren't making the playoffs. Now they're Stanley Cup champions, and on the most recent edition of Chicago Magazine, Patrick Sharp on the cover, Q&A with him on the inside. They are the toast of the town, the Blackhawks now.
Oh, to be talented and good looking. I was 0 for 2.
You see, none of us are answering. Yeah, I know, I can just see that. He was asked by the guys on overtime. They asked one of the questions, when do you feel most beautiful? That was a tough question to answer, but Graves, I'll put that one to you.
Here's a shot that is handled by Crawford. Now it comes back to the line. Burns trying to get one through. The Minnesota Wild need an answer in a big way here for what the Chicago Blackhawks have done in this second period. Their big line has scored. That was the goal by Patrick Sharp. Their third line has scored. The goal by Kopetsky, or actually you could call that their fourth line. So they've had balance. They've been the better team tonight. It's interesting going back, Brian, to your interviews before the game, and the Minnesota Wild concerned about the fact that they were playing a team that played last night. This Wild team has not played since Friday night in Anaheim.
And it shows. Yeah, I mean, they look a little stale. They look like they're trying to counter, as I said before, what Chicago was doing. And they're not doing that very well, and they're not getting anything done offensively.
Well, the Minnesota Wild called for the first penalty. It was deflected over the glass. They called it delay a game, and on the first power play opportunity here, the Blackhawks, Kane fires it high and wide. I saw the puck deflect over the glass, but I didn't think they were going to make the call. But indeed, the Wild have a man in the box, so now the NHL's top-rated power play trying to make it a 3-goal deficit for the Wild as it comes back to the right point now for Seabrook. Far side for Kane. Top of the circle, hands it off down low. Oh, Sharp just missed on a one-timer when Backstrom was occupied on the other side with Taves.
Stoner made a pretty good play defensively with that big long reach to at least hamper that cross-crease pass. Otherwise, it's just a dunk on the back door.
Blackhawks were 2 for 3 last night against the Coyotes, including a 5-on-3 tally on a bullet shot by Seabrook that was deflected by Taves.
Chicago's so good on the power play, sorry, Razor, that they change speeds all the time. One guy will be moving from one position to the next without the puck really quickly. Other guys will be moving slowly. It's really tough to track all 5 guys that you're out against when you're Minnesota.
They move so much, and every guy is a threat to be the goal scorer. It's not like they're just trying to set up one guy, especially with that #1 unit.
Right now, it's the second unit that's out there, and how about a second unit that features a guy like Marian Hossa, as Brouwer sends it back to Campbell. Far side now for Duncan Keith. That comes back to Hossa, back to the line, Campbell. Nearly lost it, but kept it in. Now Keith takes a look again, tried to make a seam pass to Hossa. Just failed to work out. Now Hossa has it again. Drops it off for Bolin. Down low for Hossa. Hossa centering pass, loose in the blue paint, and Backstrom has it covered before Bolin could get a stick on it.
Penalty killing for the Wild has been good, too, really since New Year's Eve. And it's the one goal, all goal. Rick Wilson's worked his touch, their assistant coach, on that little deflection by Backstrom there to help out. And then lots of help from the guys in green in front of the net. Can't do it by yourself. Problem when you're dealing with a power play, I think a good, talented power play with lots of different areas that can kill you, is don't be too passive, don't be too aggressive. Find something in between.
Yeah, exactly. Now, the Minnesota Wild successfully kill off that Chicago power play. Minnesota is one of just 3 teams in the league that's in the top 10 in both specialty teams areas, along with Vancouver and Montreal. They have the #7 power play, the #9 penalty kill. And they got a big penalty kill there against the top-rated power play and a red-hot power play, the Blackhawks.
Needed that. They had to get through that.
Now Frolik out to the line. Seabrook. Just sent it to an open area. Frolik gets it down deep for Ryan Johnson. Trying to go back to Frolik with a nifty little flying pass, but the Wild were able to clear. Brunette does not connect there with Marty Havlat.
Just get the sense the Wild is sort of flailing a little bit with their arms offensively. Spend a lot of time in their own zone. The Hawks have really challenged them deep in their own end. And when they've tried to attack, it just doesn't seem to be as a group. They're not getting much against Chicago, who've been very good defensively, too.
Haven't said the name Martin Havlat very much. Pierre-Marc Bouchard. These are guys that can be and should be dangerous. As Taves now takes it wide on Zanin. Got the shot away back to Taves. Again, he gave up a rebound, but it's cleared aside by Stoner.
You can see Zanin, who's playing his offside. He's a left shot over on the right side. Actually have to turn to the middle to keep up to the speed.
Now it comes to Duncan Keith. Rink-wide pass. Picked up by Taves. Now Taves. Peters is there for the Wild. Backhanded by Zanin. Again, the Hawks get a stick on it. Now it's worked by the Wild to center ice. Bouchard hands it off for Peters across the line. His wrist shot sails up high off the glass. Then ahead now for Patrick Kane. Kane darts one way, spins the other, and just had it knocked off his stick. He will try that spin move in tight quarters, one-on-one, doesn't matter. Brunette, Cullen with a wrist shot that's blocked wide. Brunette centering pass, Burns, and a great save there by Crawford. It was well set up.
They've had two good chances like that here in the second period. The other one was Havlat earlier. Both of them answered.
Under 8 minutes to go in the second. 2-0 Hawks. 2-0 Blackhawks over the Wild. Dave Strader, Daryl Ray, Brian Engblom, the rest of our NHL on Versus crew as we take a look at the U.S. Army League leaders goals by defensemen. We've got one of them here in Brent Burns, but how about Dustin Byfuglien and the year he's having with the Atlanta Thrasher, the former Hawk?
Yeah, one of the individuals that was involved in the purge out of there. I would say your Norris Trophy winner might come out of that pack. Burns has really turned his game up this season, healthy over the concussion problems. How do you not pick Nick Lidstrom again this year, though?
Well, this is incredible what he continues to do at the age of 41. And this will be an icing call against the Blackhawks as faceoff will go back into the Chicago zone. Brian Engblom.
Guys, I was just talking to Joel Quenneville a little bit there. He's pretty happy with the way his team is playing. There's no doubt about that. He played against Phoenix last night. You know, Minnesota is a very similar team tonight, and I think that helps them when you play two similar teams if you have to play on back-to-back nights. This is like the fourth and fifth period of the same kind of game.
Yeah, it'll be a challenge, I think, for Quenneville's club as this puck comes out in front of Crawford to the line. Schultz sends it across for Burns. Diagonal now for Cullen. Cullen spins, trying to create something here in the Chicago zone. Burns from the board, just knocked out in front, and just failing to backhand it was Brunette after he tried to settle it down to his stick.
Pretty deft play, hand to stick.
Back the other way now. Cullen hands it off Brunette, little redirect.
Thought Mietnin was going to keep coming that time.
Now Brunette got a stick on it, but Hjalmarsson has it. Angles it off the boards and out to center ice. I was about to say it might be more of a challenge, but maybe not at this time of year. When you play those Eastern Conference teams, Razor, I mean, you're playing these teams now. You know that you might face them in the playoffs. You're trying to keep them from getting points so that you can stay in the playoff race. Will that be a challenge facing so many Eastern Conference teams?
It might be. I mean, there's a familiarity, too, at this point in the season as far as what it takes. You know, tendencies from the other side. There's a little bit of an unknown when you cross conferences.
Cluttered Buck, that is blocked to the side by Crawford. You generally don't have to manufacture the dislike when you play a familiar foe. Now, speaking of familiar foes, the Honda Drive to the playoffs continues tomorrow at 6:30. Star netminders square off. Ryan Miller and the Sabres take on Henrik Lundqvist and the Rangers. Then Wednesday at 7, the Penguins battle the Leafs. The drive to the playoffs lives on Versus. How about the Toronto Maple Leafs? In the Eastern Conference picture, they are just 4 points behind Carolina, currently in the 8th and final spot.
These playoff races in the NHL are fabulous. For us.
Yeah, absolutely. Havlat now. Wrap around, no. He decided to try to feed it to the point, but there was Kane.
Yeah, their defensive zone coverage has been excellent for the most part for the Hawks. Look out.
Could be a 2-on-1 here. Kane waits, sends it across, score! Perfect timing by Kane to Taves. Basically an open net. It's 3-0.
That matchup on D got obliterated. Zanin got caught up the ice. There he is, number 5. No coverage underneath. Quick transition for the Hawks coming out of there. two most dangerous players on the ice, perhaps, team up on this one. Kane, the setup man, succulent little saucer pass across to Taves, and he finishes it off. At least made him elevated, but when you've got that kind of skill marrying up, look out.
Yeah, that's a no-win situation when you're Stoner, the long guy back, but Stoner did not play it very well. He backed off into the corner almost on an angle that he shouldn't have. He should have stayed in between and been much more aware of where Taves was to get in that passing lane. And, you know, it made it tough because Kane is such a good shooter himself and had his stick on the inside and had a pretty good angle to the net, but still, not a good job there by Stoner backing up.
Big head on Stobbits, and Scott steps in on Stobbits. This was on an icing play. Stobbits can handle himself, but boy, he's up against it, just trying to reach John Scott.
Ooh, that one just hurt. He just reefed him on the side of the head there. Scott is about, he looks about 9 inches taller than him, and Stobbits had no chance. If you remember when Brian Campbell got dinged a couple of years ago by Ovechkin on an icing, I think the Chicago Blackhawks are pretty sensitive to Campbell being hit, and he was briefed pretty good, and yes, it was on an icing call, and he didn't hit him that hard. You know what? It sounded worse than it really was because it hit more glass than it did Campbell, but you saw how quick the reaction was of Scott coming in there. He wasn't going to take no for an answer.
Well, this is going to be interesting then. Was there going to be a call on Stobbits for excessive contact on an icing call? Was it even that obvious that it was an icing call? So Stobbits does get 2 for boarding and 5 for fighting.
Well, I like that call. I like that call if it's boarding because, yes, it was a close icing call, and yes, we still have that in our game, although I'm against it. I think it should be automatic icing, but being a former defenseman, I'm a little prejudiced there.
I agree.
Because, you know, just too many injuries have happened, and because of literally the sound and the impact of it, you could see on the replay, and I didn't think he hit Campbell very hard. He only got maybe half of him at most, but it really doesn't matter in the referees' minds, I think, so they threw him out for a couple of minutes there. I have no problem with that,
and Scott got 2 for instigating, 5 for fighting. And guys, can I make it 3 for 3? I'm all for automatic icing. I mean, for the few times that you have those races to the puck, the injuries that have happened and can happen, and I don't think we've seen the worst that could possibly happen. I just think there's no need to have that.
Works in other leagues, right? Without
exactly.
it, so.
Yeah. At least that modified one where by the top of the circle you can tell if there's a race on or not, whether it should be blown down. Let the referees have that because it is ugly. You're going full speed into the boards with a guy right on your backside, and you got to stop within about a foot or a foot and a half. Have a nice day.
There was an icing play, and the Wild were trying to get a change in. They had their 4th line on the ice, and Stobbits was out there and finished his check and started that whole little set to, so they get Peters back out here. Now Brunette comes off, and they'll continue on to the left of Backstrom. Can't change on an icing.
Well, 5 skaters aside because the penalties cancel each other out. And Cullen now lifts it ahead. Seabrook has it. Now Burns on the far side as it angles into the Chicago zone. A steal by Cullen. Cullen cutting in, but Crawford read it well. Brunette tried to put it right back through the crease.
That is alert goaltending. Well, those are the ones that most times end up in the net because it happens so fast.
He just shut that off. He dove out perfectly timed. There was nothing, nowhere for Cullen to go.
Stole his ice.
Yep.
Hawks coming again. Here's Bolin with a shot and Backstrom the save. He will hold it there. You're watching Capital One Hockey Night on Versus. Jonathan Taves celebrating the most recent Chicago tally they have, a 3-0 lead.
Welcome back to Capital One Hockey Night on Versus. The blistering speed of the Chicago Blackhawks has proved problematic for the Wild. Zidlinsky fell down. Spurgeon with a nice defensive play on an odd man rush against. Watch this. Zanin has to turn to the inside to deal with the speed of Taves on the outside. Zanin gets caught. Stoner's back. Kane marries with Taves on the back door. Not enough stop signs.
Hawks coming again as Frolik hits the outside of the net. Under 5 minutes to go here in the second period. The
Even
Wild
a speed bump would be good.
Yeah, something to slow him down.
A small ditch.
Off the stick of Dow, sent toward the net. Here is Dow, high slot, picking it off, but couldn't make a play, and a stretch pass the other way. Havlik Two defenders are back though for the Hawks. Havlat that hit off a skate and ends up out of play. Let's go down to Brian Engblom for the Blackberry inside the glass.
Minnesota's not really showing it in tonight's game, but they're a lot more solid team than they were last year. John Madden and Matt Cullen are a big reason for that. Two center icemen that they signed this year. One of them a good defensive guy, and that guy is so good on penalty kills. He's got cup experience. John Cullen's got that mixture of intensity and that creativity offensively. They're both good on faceoffs. Gives them depth, experience, and all the things that were lacking in parts last year.
And they come into this game again right in the thick of this playoff race, along with the Chicago Blackhawks and the Dallas Stars, all with identical records. And Spurgeon sends his puck along the boards. Around on the far side, it was deflected by one of the Wild. Comes back out now for Stoner with a shot too high over the head of Corey Crawford. Now played up the near boards by Hjalmarsson. He goes down awkwardly as he was hit there by Clutterbuck. Hossa gives Clutterbuck a shove. Now Seabrook will chase it down for the Blackhawks. Off the skate of Hossa, Spurgeon is there, sends it back the other way.
That's been a big difference in the game is the outlet passing of the Hawk defense. Their ability to get their skates turned up ice and then feed pucks to these speedy and talented forwards.
Well, and in practice, Razor, you know that when you practice with guys and against guys every day and you're playing at a high tempo all the time, Seabrook and Clutterbuck having some fun way back in the Chicago zone there. That was a little distraction for the fans and for me. You get used to making plays at high tempo and getting pucks on the tape, and it shows for Chicago.
Yeah. That's the MO. Go, go, go.
Kane sends it back out now. Duncan Keith with a shot. Save made there by Backstrom. And speaking of that, guys, I saw the interview that Chris Campoli, the newest Hawk, had after it was announced that he was coming to the Blackhawks. Not here tonight. They hope to have him in uniform for Wednesday night. But how would you like to be Chris Campoli? Pretty good set of hands, makes a good first pass, and coming to this bunch.
Fits right in with the way that they like to run their back end. I mean, their strength is that group on defense and the top end of their forward sets with that talent, starting with this group of three that are on the ice for them right now.
Cage wins it cleanly. Back to Keith. Little backhand flip. Kane for Taves. Now it comes to Sharp again. Now back for Kane. Wild finally able to get it out to center ice. Now Kovacic darts between the circles. Knocked away. Following up was Cullen. Sticks in the passing lane, and there's an outlet. Taves to Sharp. Sharp waits patiently now. Hands it off. Duncan Keith leans into one that was deflected. Now at the side of the net, it pops right out in front of Backstrom, and the Wild able to send it back.
Well, he's a bad matchup right now for the Wild. They're lucky they got through that. At the same time, terrific back checking by their top line. Everybody's playing to playoff capabilities for the Hawks right now. And
Minnesota is frustrated, no doubt. I just saw Andrew Bennett go back to the bench, snapped his stick on the ice before he jumped into the box. It's building for many.
As I mentioned at the very top of the show, only 4 teams in the post-expansion National Hockey League have won the Stanley Cup and then failed to make the playoffs the next year. The most recent ones you might remember, the Carolina Hurricanes in 07 after winning the Cup in 06. And the Devils back in 96 after winning in 95.
Well, you look at that last rush for Havlat. Hawks must like that when they see guys starting to go independent contractors.
Radziak put it right through the goal mouth, angled off the board, picked up by Schultz through traffic, and that went wide. The Wild finally get the puck down deep in the Chicago zone, and there might be a Wild penalty coming here. They have the good pressure on, but somebody made contact with Crawford.
There's Havlat. He's almost in the box already. He knows it.
Yeah.
he was. I'm not even sure he waited for the whistle there.
I don't think. You want to talk about frustration. First, he tries to take it all by himself through everybody in white, and then gets to the front of the net, gets tripped up there, gets up, and here comes your interference penalty. There, that little trip. I tell you what, though, you know you've got things going in the right direction when you get your top offensive line back checking like this. Look at that. They just surrounded and mauled Kovacic on his way back into the Chicago end.
Patrick Kane probably lucky he didn't get 2 for hooking there. Every time he gets the stick horizontal, he ends up in the box.
Here is Taves, backhand shot knocked down by Backstrom. Second power play. for either team in this game. Both have gone to the Blackhawks. They are 0 for 1, but they had the commanding 3-0 lead. Just over a minute remaining in the second period. Now it comes back to Kane.
Last minute of play in the second period. 1 minute.
Now Kane again gets a shot away, misses it high on the glove side. Sharp back to the line. Seabrook has it there, left point. Hands it off now to Sharp again. Sharp at the goal line. Goal mouth pass bounced off with Stoner. Taves able to move it now to Patrick Kane. Kane trying to get the penalty killer to back off a little bit. You have to respect number 88. Now Sharp back to Kane on the far side. Wrong side of him though for the one-timer. Now Taves centering pass. That'll be gloved out of the air by Mietnin and recovered by Patrick Sharp.
Not far enough to get any changes in. There's only 20 seconds left in the period, but
now Brouwer for Kane, a shot save made by Backstrom. You can hear that hit the goal stick.
that skinny part of his stick, so above the blocker, he can really whip that puck in stride.
Final 10 seconds. Here is Sharp with it to the net. That was knocked down in front. Clutterbuck runs into Sharp, and it's taken by Madden. Easily steered aside by Crawford. 3 goals in that second period, Razor, all by the defending Stanley Cup champions.
And they didn't back off from their play in the opening period. They actually went to the accelerator a little bit in that top line too much.
Ahead on the second intermission, the Verizon intermission report. The race in the Western Conference just got tighter after a number of trade deadline deals. Did the LA Kings do enough with the acquisition of Dustin Penner? Did the Vancouver Canucks separate themselves from the pack? Bill, Keith, and Eddie break down all the deadline deals in the West. It's coming up between periods 2 and 3 here, where the Minnesota Wild have managed only 14 shots on goal through 2 periods of play, and they have been outscored 3-0 by the Chicago Blackhawks. So stay with us. The Verizon Intermission Report is coming up. Bill, Keith, and Eddie catching you up on everything that happened in the National Hockey League, focusing on the Western Conference when we come back to the NHL on Versus. Well, the fans here taking advantage of the great merchandise at the XL Energy Center. These fans still believe that their Wild can come back, although they trailed 3-0 here on Capital One Hockey Night on Versus. Dave Schrader along with Dale Ray and Brian Engblom. There was a game in this building, Razor, last season, January of 2010. As we remind you, this game is available in high definition, brought to you by Geico. These two teams in this building, January 2010, 5-1 Chicago after 2. The Wild tied it in regulation, won it in a shootout. So some of the guys on the bench might remember that.
I'm sure it was talked about. You'll grab onto anything in a situation like this.
Now Kane up the far side, hands it off for a quick shot, and Backstrom has it as we're down to the final 26 seconds in the Marty Havlat goaltender interference penalty that came late in period number 2.
And I was talking to Cal Clutterbuck this morning. He said the thing about playing against the Taves line is they're so good at the give and go. The 10-foot pass, the 15-foot pass, and then the next guy moves to the open space. That was a nice 15-footer from Kane to Taves.
Was it ever? Make you bite, change the point of attack, open things up.
Razor, you and I were talking during the intermission. When you think of different combinations or lines in the National Hockey League that just can leave you, spinning if you're trying to defend against them. You think of the Sedins in Vancouver, Datsuk and Zetterberg in Detroit. These guys here with Chicago.
They just make you miss, make you chase.
Big pass for Havlat. He's behind everybody. Couple of moves to the far, and he scored! That's exactly what the Wild needed.
Not very good awareness by the 2 defensemen, Keith and Leddy. Leddy, I don't think ever recognized that there was a guy coming out of the penalty box. Yeah, they turned it over at the attacking blue line, and talk about turn on the right turn signal and then go back the other way on Crawford. From our Jack Daniels goal cam, Crawford bit hard on the move to the backhand, and an easy stuff for Havlat to change the complexion of this game.
Razor, the Hawks went to sleep there. There is no excuse not to know the guys coming out of the penalty box. Guys on the bench, the goaltender should be slapping his stick more. Do you not know it's a 2-minute penalty? Leddy went to sleep. He did. He looked absolutely startled that Havlat was there. Like, where did he come from?
Here's Bouchard now. He fakes a shot. He looks across. That one's in the glove of Crawford. You should be aware regardless of who's in there, Daryl Ray. But when it's Marty Havlat, boy, you better know.
Right, exactly. I mean, you have some guys. Here's Letty over here. He's got to know that there's a guy coming out of the box and bail out of there. Instead, he goes in looking for something. Yeah, the turnover turns it into this. And then look at that. Oh, the high priest of head fakes on the way in to lose Crawford.
But did you see Letty's head? Letty was looking at the puck carrier the whole time, and all of a sudden he went, oh my goodness, there's another guy in green over there.
Now Bolin backhands it across. It's off the glove of Hossa. Recovered here by Cullen. Now the first couple of shifts after a goal, so important. Let's see how the Wild respond to their bit of good fortune there, and whether the Hawks become a little bit more desperate. This is the period, Brian Engblom, where you might expect it might show, if anything does, with Chicago having played last night, as Cullen cruising in, put it off of Crawford. It's recovered by Bolin and sent back the other way.
Yeah, because they played last night, yeah, you'd think if the legs are going to go, they'll go now. But they've been in control of the puck so much, and Minnesota's had the chase. I'm not sure that Minnesota's not the tired team right now.
But man, if they ever leaned on Keith and Seabrook go on the back end, they played monster minutes through 2 periods.
That's been the smartest part of Minnesota's game, no doubt.
Sellout crowd here getting the chant of "Let's go Wild." Got to get behind their team as Brouwer, surrounded by a couple of Minnesota players. Brent Burns plays it off the boards out to center ice. Keith has it there. And now Campbell hands it off for Duncan Keith. Kane drops it back, or rather that Dow, who goes back to the net. Kicked aside by Backstrom. And now Kovacic able to find Brodziak through the neutral zone. Brodziak tried to cut back to the middle. Slapped away from him. Frolik. Gets it to Ryan Johnson. He's separated from the puck by Clutterbuck, and back comes Havlat. Havlat hands it off. Clutterbuck centering pass. Oh, and a stop there by Crawford. It's sent back to the front of the Chicago net, but the Hawks able to clear.
What a talent Havlat is. Never a bad pass to a good player. You hear that. It's a cliche in this league, but he took a pass in the skates in stride in an almost 10-2 pivot and continued that attack toward Crawford.
Whereas Crawford, Havlat, who was moving in there on Crawford, had 3 terrific years with the Blackhawks. A turnover here by the Wild.
Stoner can't send that puck there like that.
Diagonal passes coming out of the zone like that. That was terrible. It was an easy read for Keith. He just read his eyes.
Now Cullen got held up. A delayed call coming here. The Minnesota Wild have pulled it within 2, and now they're going to have their first power play.
They started to attack the Chicago net with more speed, more drive.
More Chicago.
You know, take it inside, foot speed of Cullen, who has great speed. Once a defenseman takes his hand off his stick, that happens, right, Brian?
Yeah, unfortunately.
There's Havlat. There's Havlat. Look at it, just syrupy with that puck taking the blue line, and then out of that, they take it right to the net.
Power play number 1 of the evening for the Minnesota Wild, and a chance to pull to within 1 and really give this crowd something to cheer about. And the linesman didn't like the way that puck drop went.
Guys, you're talking about Havlat. He's got those surgical hands, and it's like laser surgery, because by the time he goes around you, you feel like body parts are being lopped off of you.
They're fast, too. Those are quick hands.
Smooth, you don't hear anything. It's silent and deadly.
Ball controlled by the Wild. Here's Burns, backhand off the boards. Clutterbuck being pressured by Johnson, and the puck comes all the way back out into the Minnesota zone. We're at the XL Energy Center here in St. Paul, Minnesota. Capital One Hockey Night on Versus. Dave's creator Daryl Ray, Brian Engblom. The guys back at Hockey Central, keeping track of everything else that happened on this busy trade deadline day in the National Hockey League. And this is offside as Cullen went in ahead of the play.
Johnson forced him to do that. It looked like there's going to be some contact. Cullen had to lift up a leg.
Now the faceoff coming just outside the Chicago line in front of the Hawks bench. And they're going to try this again.
Well, they're having a tough time dropping the puck during this Wild power play, which is killing any momentum that they can get going.
Now Leddy plays it back into the Wild zone. Now the Blackhawks, we mentioned, top power play in the National Hockey League, but down near the bottom, ranked 26th on the penalty kill. They got beat twice last night by the struggling Coyote power play.
Well, some of that's personnel. They lost a lot of key individuals who kill penalties for this team, and intensity.
Burns to the net. That was a pass. He was trying to hit the stick of Andrew Burnett, just missed it. It rolls all the way back into the Wild zone.
They're doing a good job of clearing the zone themselves. The Hawks don't even have to worry about it right now.
There's nothing like missing the net on the far side. Gets you in trouble every time.
Burns to Havlat. Burns trying to get in and work away from Duncan Keith. And now this hand pass, I believe, is the call.
Took him a minute 15 to get Havlat out here on this power play as they were bringing it around. He's got to be the most dangerous guy on the ice. He can be a terrific power play quarterback, too.
I mentioned Havlat, 3 seasons in Chicago. Played 172 games. There was almost a point-a-game player. 161 points in 172 games while in a Blackhawk uniform. The only reason he wasn't re-signed a couple of summers back was because Marian Hossa was available, and Hossa was signed on July 1st by the Hawks. And here's a turnover by Havlat. Sharp racing for it. Sharp cutting in short-handed. Didn't get much of a shot away, but still Backstrom had to make a couple of stops.
Brian, how's there no penalty on that?
Yeah, I know. On the backside, pretty good against Patrick Sharp. He did a good job of fending off Lidlitsky, but usually those ones are called.
Now it comes back around on the near side where it is cleared, and here comes Hjalmarsson out of the box with Bolin. 2 Wild players are back as this shot by Bolin goes up too high on the glass. And that is a big penalty kill for the Chicago Blackhawks and a missed opportunity for the Wild to close the gap in this game that was 3-0. Havlat's breakaway goal.
And he just about gave up a breakaway short-handed to Sharp. That was probably the best scoring opportunity during the 2 minutes.
Leddy did not get it by Kobasu, but now it bounces out to center ice. Edgar Kane has it there, drops it back down for Campbell.
That was a tough play for Havlat to handle, too. When you're a defenseman or a forward playing back on defense like that, it comes off the wall and into your feet. The guy's charging at you. It's just so easy to cause a turnover, and it's tough to protect yourself and the puck and make the right play.
And don't you think Sharp knew that, too, right?
Oh,
That's
absolutely.
a bam, just attacks right away.
Yeah, he got all over him. He smothered them completely, turned the puck over. He did it the way you're supposed to do. He made sure first he didn't gamble and try to poke it and be cute about it, poke it around him and get an easy breakaway. He went over the top of Havlat, make sure he pushed it out of the zone, and then got the breakaway. That's the right way to do it.
Now in front of the Chicago bench, Wild trying to hold it in. It's blocked by Frolik. Brouwer on the far side. Dow just spun away from a Jidlitsky step up there in the neutral zone. Now deflected off the stick of Brunette. Cullen pushes it ahead, tried to get something going with speed. Now the Wild have to go back and regroup.
That gap of Duncan Keith stays right up on the play, breaks that up, it seems like with ease.
Brunette shot here, and Crawford fights that one off the high glass.
Yeah, that handcuffed him.
That is kept in by the Wild. Here's Mietnin. There's it up the near boards. Now it rolls back in deep. Cullen has a look. Cullen, centering pass. That got through. Nobody from the Wild able to get to it. Now Duncan Keith quickly up the far side. Frolik hands it off to Seabrook. And Seabrook will hammer the puck behind the Minnesota net around on the far side. Just over 12 minutes remaining here in the third period. The Wild have a goal for Martin Havlat to get back to within 2.
Well, you can really tell with no Mikko Koivu in the lineup, the ability to sustain the attack down low from Minnesota just isn't there. That also takes away the game of Andrew Burnett, who's really good behind the net and around the crease.
You're watching Capital One Hockey Night on Versus 3-1 Hawks. Hawks led it 3-0 after 2. A Havlat goal has made it 3-1. Let's get to our KFC third period storyline.
Well, the Sharp goal was a big one to get him started. Taves has had a big night. There he is on the back door of that sweet pass. They get one back, though. Havlat out of the box has made this an interesting final portion of this third period, but they really needed to execute on that power play. I think the Wild lost a little steam on that.
Now Burns for the Wild drives it back. Crawford got a piece of it with the goal stick but couldn't control. Now Bouchard has it. Pierre-Marc Bouchard, number 96, looking to center. It's picked up one time back to the net by Burns. He's upset with himself that he didn't get a more accurate shot away. Might have had a little bit more time there.
It's a tough one-timer, though, for a right shot like that coming in that way.
He doesn't like his stick, too. He was just flexing the toe of the stick, so it must have just gave out on him a little bit. It doesn't look like it's broken because he's staying out there, though.
Now Hossa back on the counterattack. Looks across. Chalmerson with a shot to the front. And Bouchard has it again now for the Wild. Schultz waits and now dumps it in deep. Chalmerson plays it off that high glass, and Spurgeon wanted to be careful not to touch it up on the change for fear of too many men on the ice.
Razor, this game has not gone the way Minnesota wanted to in a lot of ways. They used the Madden matchup against Taves, and the Taves line's running rampant, and now you pretty much just got to go to 4 lines and roll it. Right, that was a bouncing puck there, but this is not the way Minnesota laid it out. Now they got to go to their big guns and hope that they've got something in them to get them back into it.
On Thursday, the UFC returns live to Versus with the first in a flurry of fight nights. In the main event, the relentless Diego the Nightmare Sanchez challenges the knockout power of Martin the Hitman Chapman, plus top middleweights battle as CB Dalloway squares off against the Filipino wrecking machine Mark Munoz. The UFC on Versus live and free on Thursday.
I agree. They talked about wanting to dictate the pace of this game, and the Chicago Blackhawks have dictated this game.
Oh, yeah.
Now Kopecky, who has one of the 3 Chicago goals. They all came in the second period. Ryan Johnson offside on that play.
This line for Todd Richards is one that they had a good shift late in that second period and could maybe do something for them. Brunette, Cullen, who's Mr. kind of everything for them right now, as you mentioned, with Koivu out and Nietinen. They put a pretty good focus, the Hawks have, on that top line of Brodziak, Bouchard, and Havlat, and have kept them in check most of the night.
Yeah, I mean, it really has been about puck possession, turnovers, bad turnovers, too many of them in the first half of the game, especially for Minnesota. They're better now, but that really has been the biggest story in the game. Chicago has good puck handling anyway. You don't want to help them.
Yeah, they're better now, but they're in a hurry. That usually can backfire against you.
Here is Burns, the defenseman, leading the rush, but his centering pass was off the mark. Crowd here wanted a penalty. As Kane comes back one-on-one against Schultz, drops it back to Sharp. Sharp on the far side, good stick by Madden. That might have been an easy redirect for Duncan Keith.
There's your Stanley Cup pedigree going both directions. Great back check by Taves, one direction. Phenomenal back check by Madden the other way.
And you know what? That's Patrick Kane, against Schultz. Schultz did a real nice job at him, but when teammates on Minnesota for Schultz see that it's Kane, everybody wants to help. So instead of turning around and looking for Sharp, they're helping with Kane. Schultz was just fine, thank you, but it turned into a scoring chance because Patrick Kane is alert enough to get the puck to Sharp.
That's that trust thing, right?
Now Kopecky sends it back the other way. Cullen, Brunette, Nietinen back out here now for Todd Richards on the Minnesota Wild. Zidlinsky had his feet taken out from under him, and Dave Bolin of the Hawks is going to go to the box. And that means Minnesota will have their second opportunity to try to close the gap. It's 3-1 Hawks here in the third. Western Conference matchup, but let's talk about the Pizza Hut favorite matchup. These two guys going head-to-head.
John Madden, Jonathan Taves. I guess advantage Taves so far in the hockey game. Goal and a helper for him. They've been straight up against one another throughout the contest. And Taves has been much better at controlling the dot, winning faceoffs.
Bolin's in the box for the Blackhawks. Power play number 2 doesn't start very well for the Wild because they don't control the faceoff. As a whole, the Chicago Blackhawks winning 60% of the draws. And they are just magnified in the special team situation when a power play starts in the offensive zone for the team with the man advantage.
See what kind of urgency the Wild have with this second power play. They got nothing going on the other one.
It's the most thankless job there is when you're down, the pressure's on, and you're on the power play. You just go out there and relax, guys. But, oh, yeah, by the way, you got to score, too.
Now it comes out to Burns. Wasn't in a position where he could shoot it. Now he lets it go. It was blocked. Comes right back to Zidlinsky. He waits, stick handles. He's got Crawford down. Still doesn't make a play. Sends it to the corner. Bouchard straight away gets it back from Havlat. Now Havlat again. Shot to the net. Save. And Crawford does not give up a rebound.
Boy, off of that broken play again. I think Seabrook blocked it. Crawford scrambling around, trying to handle things. Quickly comes back into view. I think they had as much of a problem, though, with Brodziak, their own teammate in front of the net. No room to shoot around here than they did Corey Crawford.
Still a minute 3 remaining in the Bolin minor penalty. The Wild control this draw. Here is Burns. Hands it off on the far side. Miettinen down low. Brunette. Oh, he tried to go stick through the legs. And
yes, he did.
Tuck one in.
Campbell said, no, you don't.
Now Burns again. Waits, shoots. Didn't get through. Centering pass. Clutterbuck had a pop at it. Now it comes free for Miettinen. Down low. Miettinen gets it back. Now Miettinen waits patiently with it. Hands it off to Brunette. Goes back to Miettinen. That was a nifty pass. Now in the face-off circle, a shot goes just wide off the stick of Clutterbuck. And from that angle, Brian, there it is again. The puck is cleared just from the force of the shot.
It just missed by a whisker, though, out that side. That was the first time in ages that the Wild were on the ice with the puck in the attacking zone, and nobody named Seabrook or Keith was on the ice. They're both out here now.
Cullen holds his puck in. Spurgeon sets it up for Clutterbuck off of his stick and hammered by Hossa with enough force to clear the zone. Final seconds in the Bolin minor penalty. He steps out. One shot on goal for the Wild on that power play, but they were dangerous. Just didn't get enough pucks through.
You're right, Dave. They might be able to build some momentum out of that, too.
Well, if you remember the power play goals that were scored last night by Phoenix against the Chicago Blackhawks is because the shots from the point actually got through. If you're going to have screens in front of the net, you have to have the intelligent shooter. You can't hit your own guy in front of the net. The Chicago defense is led by Keith and Seabrook, no doubt about that, and for good reason. I really like this guy. Nicholas Hjalmarsson did a heck of a job last year, especially in the playoffs. He had a slow start to this year because I think he tried to do about $1.5 million more work because they gave him a new contract. Finally, he settled in and said, I'm just going to be me like I was last year, and that's more than good enough. Look, Razor, for me, he's a blender. He fits in with everybody, knows how to blend, and whether he's playing with Campbell, last year he played with Sokol, killing penalties. It doesn't matter who. Hjalmarsson knows what to do, and he blends in.
You'd appreciate this. Every time I talk to somebody about him, they always say the same thing. As a partner, he's always available.
Now Campbell with a shot. Loose puck, and it's covered by Backstrom. That was Brian Engblom inside the glass, brought to you by BlackBerry. As we're down to 6:27 remaining here in the third period. And now the time all of a sudden is kind of running out on Backstrom in the Wild.
It is. And again, it's the same thing. They get outshot. It's almost like a rope-a-dope. On a nightly basis, the Wild face way more shots than the opposing netminder. They've outshot the opposing team 8 times in 62 games. Just 8 times.
Wow. No wonder Backstrom has to have those.
Well, their goaltending's been spectacular.
Incredible save percentage numbers. Now Havlat drops it back. Here's Burns. Off a skate, comes out to center ice. Schultz has it there.
Yeah, I believe Backstrom's got the highest save percentage of any goalie in the league since the All-Star break, and obviously that's when their big-time stretch starts.
There is Havlat now, hands it off. Brodziak trying to go high short side. Crawford blocked that.
Out in the angle, square to him, nothing to shoot at whatsoever.
Leddy with a feed to Fickle. Couldn't get much on the shot. It was a bouncing puck. Now on the angle. An attempt there by Kopecky, but it bounced off of Backstrom center ice. Campbell has it there. Second period goals by Sharp, Kopecky, and Taves for the Chicago Blackhawks. An answer here in the third from Havlat. And this play well offside. You're watching Capital One Hockey Night on versus the Hawks with a 2-goal lead late in the third. Well, take another look at the Western Conference standings. Vancouver and Detroit have a little separation. San Jose in a battle for the division with Phoenix and LA. And you look at Minnesota, Dallas, and Chicago, all with the exact same record coming in. We showed you earlier what remained for Chicago. For Todd Richards, 19 games, a little more favorable than Chicago in terms of home and road, and also 13 games against the West, but only 3 remaining against the teams right now that are 3 through 8. So again, a lot of scoreboard watching.
Well, 3 of their last 4 games will be played on the road too, at Detroit, at Vancouver, then in Edmonton, and then they finish up against the Dallas Stars here on home ice. So, you know, those will be meaningful.
Yeah, exactly. And Chicago with a win here tonight will go all the way from outside the playoffs up to 6. They'll be even in points with Los Angeles. LA playing later tonight in the only other game in the National Hockey League, the Kings hosting the Detroit Red Wings.
He's got to be happy with the way his crew has gone about their business here tonight. Joel Quenneville. You know, the area where they played more, maybe most energetic and determined has been their defending.
Very businesslike, very calm, and very under control. Blackhawks from start to finish.
In a recent game in St. Louis, Quenneville's team was down 2-0 to the Blues, and the Blues were still believing they could be a playoff team at that time. And something happened, something clicked midway through that game. The Blues came back, or rather the Hawks came back and defeated the Blues, and Joe Quenneville said we started caring about the defensive side of the puck, and it led to our offense. And I think since that point, they have just been fantastic, looking like the defending Stanley Cup champions.
And it's been their top offensive players that have led the way with that.
You know who else I've been really impressed with, too, is Ryan Campbell. Ryan Campbell's game has changed over the last year or two, and he picks his spots so much better now. He's going to force him this game offensively, picking the right time.
Here comes Sharp, speaking of being a force offensively, and he was stopped there by Backstrom. Back on the counterattack now. Robjack hands it off. Burns with a chance, save, rebound. Crawford still doesn't have it, they score! A save in one end, a goal at the other. How often do we say that? And this is a one-goal contest.
Well, the Wild were a mess in their own zone. They got chasing back to their own net. Backstrom handles that one in front, takes it in the tummy. They explode off of that, and it's just about all Brent Burns after that. Brodziak brings it in, but it's the defenseman joining the attack. Not only does he join, but he bludgeons this thing into the net. That's a very determined goal.
That's some outstanding work. What a 2-goal swing that is. When I watched Patrick Sharp came in, I'll take that shot. If I'm the goalie, that one went in. Well, maybe that's an understatement, but Backstrom never flinched because Sharp really changed the angle of attack when he let the puck go on his release. Backstrom had it covered all the way, and then the turnover, and Minnesota goes down and gets the goal. That's big.
New career high for him. Yep. And the light is not always green for the Wild defenseman. If you don't know, don't go is the rule. He went, and it paid off.
You got to play by the clock and the score. Know where you are, how much time is left, whether you're ahead or behind. You were behind, right time for Burns to go and press it.
So it is now a one-goal game, and we still got plenty of time in NHL hockey terms with better than 3 minutes and 40 seconds remaining here in regulation.
This place is alive now, too.
Boy, is it ever. Spurgeon dumps it in deep. Letty trying to get there. Nystrom taken down. No call coming. And that's backhanded over the glass. That's going to be a delay of game. Kopetsky was tight to the boards. He's a left-hand shot, I think, with his backhand. He somehow still managed to do what he didn't want to do.
You can get fatigue from the neck up, too, sometimes. Second one of these calls tonight. That's Kopetsky down the boards on the. How many times do you see that happen on the backhand? They win the puck battle, and out of winning the puck battle, end up shorthanded.
Well, you can see he had this shovel action going there. That's what you have to do to get the puck airborne on the backhand. He gets too much on it. That almost never happens on the forehand. Most of the time, it is the backhand.
Look out here. That puck up into the bench and out of play. As once again, the Wild, this is their third power play of this third period. They're 0 for 2, and that's the second one, Razor, that has started with a face-off loss and allows the Hawks to get it out of there.
And just eats clock. And, you know, if you're looking for signs of maybe some weariness in the Hawks, they didn't put the Wild on the power play for 40 minutes. Now they're on their back pedal. They got to get through this to make sure this thing isn't brand new with 3 minutes to go.
Chicago has a great power play, but their penalty killing is like 26th in the league. That's the big gap. Minnesota is about even, and they're in the top 10 in both their power play and penalty killing. So special teams starting to kick in here.
Here is Burns, who has the goal that brought the Wild to within one. Now it bounces in wide of Crawford. Seabrook hammers it around the glass. It bounced off of Brodziak, and the Wild just can't get a clean entry.
Burns tried to do the right thing there, though, I think. That you just act like a wild Mustang. Get it in and go get it yourself.
Which is exactly what he is, Razor, right? We're talking to Rick Wilson, the defenseman coach for Minnesota, and that's basically what he was calling him. You don't want to tame it too much. You don't want to turn a thoroughbred into a plow horse.
Here Marc Bouchard has it now. Finally, the Wild power play has it set up in the Chicago zone. Right to the goal crease. May have bounced off of Crawford. Bouchard right point. Hands it off. Gets it right back. Bouchard straight away. One-timer here from Zivlitsky. He can bring it. But that's deflected wide to the corner. And Toews. Oh, what a stick by Bouchard to keep it in. And by Burns to keep it alive. A chance here in front for the Wild is off the right hand of Crawford. Backhanded in front. But Bouchard will dive to keep this puck in. But now he's down on the ice. And back comes Toews. And Hossa 2-on-1 shorthanded. Hossa. He scores! What a turn of events.
While the first two keep-ins were heroic for the Wild, Bouchard and then Burns, but the last one was a poor decision. You understand the urgency, but scramble around the net. Took himself out of the play by diving. Second 2-on-1 goal the Hawks have executed on. Just murder when you get this kind of talent. We never looked at Hossa. Toews' eyes were always looking ahead. Perfect pass into the awaiting stick of Marian Hossa. Boom.
It was all or nothing for Minnesota all the way. Brent Burns on the back check, no gas left in the tank. Bouchard gold because I don't think he had anything to offer defensively. And Zidlitsky didn't play that 2-on-1 very well either. He left too much room between his stick and body for Toews to make that pass.
I like the guy's effort and everything, but there are times when you just got to re-rack and take it out of the blue line, start over again. There's still a lot of time left.
Backstrom has gone to the bench. Extra attacker is on as Kopecky comes out of the penalty box for the Hawks. So that's why there was no icing there. Still a power play. Here comes Burns coming in. Centering pass. Backhanded away by Boland. Brodziak and Havlat assisted on the Burns goal. Toews assisted on the Hossa goal to give him 3 points on the night.
Yeah, he's been fairly dominant.
Yeah. Has he ever? Now Havlat circles back. He was taken down there by Bickle. Now Hossa, who scored his 16th goal, his second shorty of the season. He is such a terrific two-way player.
And he's starting to score for them now, too.
That is 4 straight games now that Hossa has scored a goal. He went 7 or 8 games prior to that without one. But you know, it's just a matter of time. He is so responsible defensively. Brodziak's shot here is out of play. As we get to our Bud Light impact player, and I think it's a pretty easy decision. There were some good guys out here tonight for the Chicago Blackhawks, but they were led by their captain.
He's got a get on my back mentality going right now for this Hawk team. 3 points. He's phenomenal on face-offs throughout the game. His defense, how many times have we seen him hustle to get back and cover in his own zone?
Yeah, Razor, he's one of the handful of most well-rounded players in the National Hockey League. There's no doubt. Sidney Crosby,
yeah, I got
Nick Lidstrom, Datsuk.
Brian, I got asked this question. I'll ask you too. And I said he'd be the perfect guy to build a team around. When I got asked, well, who would you pick right now in this league if you could pick one guy to start with to build your team around? I said Jonathan Toews.
Well, you're not wrong doing that. I mean, Sidney Crosby obviously is on that list too, because I know you're thinking about age, and look how young this guy is. It is amazing, the composure, the talent, the thought process. He plays like a guy who's been in the league 10 years, not just a couple, and he gets it all done under pressure. That was a brilliant pass to Hossa to put that game away, which basically it is right now with 19 seconds to go.
I had a teammate that said if I had a sister, I'd want her to marry Jonathan Taves.
There you go. He's in demand in all situations,
There
I
you go.
guess.
It's as well-rounded as you can get.
Didlitsky now. That's redirected just wide of Crawford on the glove side. Final seconds tick off the clock. So these two teams that came into this game with absolutely identical records. It was the Blackhawks, led by this guy, that made the statement.
They bent, but they didn't break out here tonight. They bowed a little bit in the third period. They just had an overall harder edge to their game than the Minnesota Wild did. Full marks for the double-up victory.
Coming up on Hockey Central, presented by Bud Light, are the Blackhawks ready to defend their Stanley Cup? Bill Keith and Eddie will handicap the Hawks' chances down the stretch. Notice we say handicap when we mention Eddie Olczyk. Plus, two of the top teams in the West hook up tonight as the Kings host the Red Wings. Highlights and a live look in on that game ahead on Hockey Central, and the impact player Jonathan Taves standing by with Brian Engblom.
Well, John, two consecutive games against tight defensive teams, two big wins. What was the key for you guys tonight?
Well, you know, we just played solid hockey the first couple of periods and try not to give them too much. And, you know, it doesn't matter how you play a team like that. They're going to have a lot of fight with them in them when it comes down to it at the end. So we got to kill off a couple of penalties and kind of weather the storm at the end.
Last 17 games now, you've got 25 points. That's the best stretch you've ever had in that number of games. What's different? What's going so right for you personally?
You know, I've been playing well with Kaner all year, but I think Sharpie is really finding a way to get open for us, and he doesn't make too many mistakes when he gets around that net. So, you know, we're finding ways to get on the board every night and help our team win. And, you know, I think we've been doing a good job, other than tonight, keeping pucks out of our own net. So we'll keep playing that way.
Thanks very much, Jonathan.
Thanks, Brian.
Dave?
Well, it was 2 points, but for Patrick Sharp and the Blackhawks, they were able to leapfrog 3 teams. They go by Dallas, Minnesota, and Calgary, and tie Los Angeles momentarily. The Kings playing later tonight. Hope you've enjoyed the action here from the XL Energy Center in St. Paul, Minnesota.